The stars stretched endlessly before the horizon's edge as it glided through the darkness of space. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, watching the viewport display thousands of distant suns. His ship was 3 months into a survey mission, charting unexplored regions near the Kepler expanse. It was supposed to be routine work, the kind that filled databases and earned small mentions in scientific journals. Lieutenant Amy Wells sat at her communications station, monitoring the usual background noise of the universe, radio waves from distant pulsars, cosmic radiation, the normal chaos of space. She had been doing this job for 2 years and could recognize every pattern. But today, something was different. A signal cut through the noise, regular and deliberate, mathematical sequences repeating over and over. "Captain, I'm picking up something unusual," Amy said, her voice cutting through the quiet hum of the bridge. "It's not natural. Someone is broadcasting." Jake moved to her station, studying the data streaming across her screen. The signal pulsed with clear intelligence behind it. Numbers, patterns, information, encoded in ways that suggested purpose. "Where's it coming from?" Amy ran the calculations. "The signal originates from coordinates that show empty space on our charts. Nothing should be there. No stars, no planets, nothing." Dr. Peter Lawson, the chief science officer, joined them. He was a man who lived for mysteries, and his eyes lit up as he saw the data. "This is remarkable. The signal contains complex mathematical formulas. It's like someone is trying to communicate using pure logic." Jake made a decision, set a course for the source. "Let's see what we find." The journey took 3 days. As they approached the coordinates, sensors finally detected something. A massive structure orbited a dying red dwarf star, a station so old it looked like it had been there for thousands of years. The metal was dark and scarred, covered in symbols that their computer couldn't immediately translate. "Admiral Grant needs to know about this," Jake said, opening a communication channel to Earth. The message would take hours to reach Federation Command, and the reply would take just as long. They were on their own for now. Lieutenant Kyle Davis, head of security, prepared a boarding team. He was a careful man who planned for every possibility. "Sir, we don't know what we're walking into." "That station could be dangerous." "Noted," Jake replied. "But we came here to explore." "Gear up, Amy, you're with us. We'll need your communications expertise." They crossed the void between ship and station in a small shuttle. The docking port was ancient but still functional, accepting their ship's connection as if it had been waiting. The airlock opened with a hiss, revealing corridors lit by dim emergency lights that had somehow survived millennia. The interior was vast and empty. Their footsteps echoed as they moved deeper into the station. The walls were covered in writing, symbols that seemed to shift and change as they looked at them. Peter recorded everything, his scanner working overtime to catalog the alien architecture. They found the central chamber after an hour of searching. It was circular, with a pillar of light in the center that extended from floor to ceiling. Around the pillar were data terminals, still active, still running. The technology was far beyond anything humanity had created. Amy approached one of the terminals cautiously. Her fingers moved over the interface, and to her surprise it responded. The station's computer recognized her touch and began displaying information. Files upon files of data organized by species. She saw names she didn't recognize, images of creatures from 100 different worlds. Then she found the human file. Her breath caught in her throat. The data was complete. Earth's exact location, population counts, military strength, resource distribution, everything. Someone had been watching humanity for decades, cataloging their every move. "Captain, you need to see this." Amy's voice was shaking. Jake read the data over her shoulder, his face growing grim. Every entry had a symbol next to it. Most were marked with the same crimson icon. Peter worked on translating it, his portable computer cross-referencing the station's language database. "I've got it," Peter said quietly. "The symbol means harvested. These species were all harvested." The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Jake counted the entries. 73 civilizations, all marked as harvested. All gone. The human file was different. It had another symbol, one that Peter translated as pending. Kyle moved to the center of the room, his weapon ready. "We should leave now, but it was too late." The station responded to their presence, systems powering up that had been dormant for centuries. Holographic projectors activated, filling the chamber with light. A figure appeared, humanoid but clearly alien. Its features suggested intelligence and grace. a being from a civilization that had reached for the stars. The hologram spoke in a language the station translated into English. "We are the Kelvin. If you are seeing this message, you have made the same mistake we did. We found this station just as you have. We thought it was a gift, a repository of knowledge left by benevolent ancestors. We were wrong." The hologram's expression was filled with regret and terror. The station is a trap. It catalogs species that show promise that might one day threaten those who built it. When you activate the terminals, when you access the data, you trigger a beacon. The beacon calls them the Harvesters. Jake felt ice forming in his chest. "Amy, can we shut it down?" She was already working, her fingers flying over the controls. "I'm trying." The system won't respond. It's locked into a transmission sequence. The Kelvin hologram continued. "The Harvesters are ancient machines built by beings we called the Architects. They created these stations across the galaxy to identify species that might grow too powerful. When a species finds a station and activates it, the beacon summons the Harvesters. They come, they evaluate, and they harvest. They take everything: technology, resources, life itself. They leave nothing behind." Peter was pulling up historical data from the station's files. What he found made him feel sick. 73 civilizations had found stations like this one. Each time, the Harvesters arrived within 10 years. Each time, the species was completely destroyed. No survivors, no mercy, just efficient elimination. "We thought we could fight them," the Kelvin said. "We prepared for years. We built weapons, united our people, did everything we could imagine. It wasn't enough. They adapted to every weapon, learned from every tactic. In the end, we barely had time to record this warning. The Harvesters are coming for you now. We are sorry. We wish we could have done more." The hologram faded, leaving them in stunned silence. The station around them was humming now, energy flowing through systems that had been cold for thousands of years. A massive transmitter at the top of the structure was broadcasting into deep space, sending Earth's location to something waiting in the darkness. "We have to destroy this station," Kyle said, checking his weapons. "Cut the transmission." Peter shook his head. "The power source is too advanced. Our weapons would barely scratch it. And even if we could destroy it, the signal is already sent. It's traveling at faster than light speeds through their network." Jake made a command decision. "Everyone back to the shuttle. We're leaving. Amy, copy everything you can from these terminals. Every file, every record. If the Harvesters are coming, we need to know everything this station knows about them." They ran through the corridors as the station continued to wake up around them. Systems that had been silent were coming online, preparing for something. The lights grew brighter, the hum grew louder, and somewhere deep in the structure something massive was powering up. The shuttle barely cleared the station before it happened. The entire structure began to glow with energy, light pouring from every surface. Then it exploded, a controlled detonation that left nothing but debris. The station had fulfilled its purpose and destroyed itself, erasing evidence of what had happened, but the damage was done. Somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, the beacon had been received. Something ancient had Earth's coordinates now, something that had destroyed 73 civilizations without mercy. The horizon's edge set course for Earth at maximum speed. Jake sat in his command chair, staring at the data Amy had recovered. The files contained details about the Harvesters, their methods, their history. He read about civilizations that fought and died, about worlds left as empty husks, about the cold efficiency of machines following programming established millennia ago. Admiral Helen Grant's reply came hours later. Her face on the screen was serious as she listened to Jake's report. When he finished, she was silent for a long moment. "Return to Earth immediately. We'll convene an emergency council. If what you're saying is true, humanity needs to prepare for war." The journey home took weeks. Every day, Jake reviewed the data, trying to find something that might help. The Kelvin had left combat logs, tactical analyses, everything they learned before the end. It wasn't enough to save them, but maybe it would give humanity a chance. Peter found one entry that offered a sliver of hope. A species called the Vryn had actually managed to destroy several Harvester ships before being overwhelmed. Their combat data was incomplete, but it suggested the Harvesters weren't invincible. They could be hurt, could be fought, could maybe even be defeated. 6 months had passed since the horizon's edge returned to Earth. The world Jake Morrison came back to was nothing like the one he left. Fear had gripped humanity, but so had something else: determination. the kind born from facing extinction. The Council of Nations met in emergency session every week. Chancellor Richard Beck led the debates, trying to unite Earth's governments under a single purpose. It wasn't going well. Some nations believed the threat was real and demanded immediate action. Others thought the whole thing was a mistake or worse, a conspiracy to justify military expansion. Commander Lisa Harper ran Federation intelligence now. She was a woman who dealt in facts, not speculation. Her team had spent months analyzing every signal from deep space, looking for patterns. What they found terrified her. Over the past 2,000 years, 17 civilizations had simply stopped broadcasting. Their planets were later found stripped completely. No life, no resources, nothing but barren rock. The pattern is clear, Lisa told the council during one heated meeting. Every civilization that went silent showed the same progression. First, their deep space transmissions become erratic. Then they go dark completely. Within 2 years, orbital scans show the planets are dead. Whatever the harvesters are, they're thorough. Senator Greg Palmer stood up, his face red with anger. This is fear-mongering. We're being asked to spend trillions on weapons to fight an enemy we've never seen, an enemy that might not even exist. This data could mean anything. The debate raged for hours. Meanwhile, outside the council chambers, humanity was already making its choice. Volunteers flooded military recruitment centers. Shipyards that had been building transport vessels retooled for warships. Scientists abandoned peaceful research to develop weapons. The people had decided, even if their leaders hadn't. General Victor Kane was put in charge of something called Protocol Darkwatch. He was a veteran of the colony wars, a man who understood that sometimes survival meant doing terrible things. His job was simple: turn humanity into a military power capable of fighting an enemy that had destroyed 73 civilizations. Shipyards orbiting Earth worked 24 hours a day. New vessels rolled out every week, each one larger and more heavily armed than the last. The designs borrowed from every military conflict in human history, combined with reverse-engineered alien technology from archaeological sites. Humanity was building an armada, but would it be enough? That question kept Victor awake at night. The Vryn Collective had put up a fight, according to the records. They had better technology than humanity, a unified government, and decades to prepare. The harvesters wiped them out in 6 months. Dr. Claire Watson worked in a laboratory deep beneath Geneva. She was a mathematician who specialized in predictive modeling. The data from the archive station became her obsession. She input every variable she could find, running simulations that tried to predict when the harvesters would arrive. Her calculations kept coming back to the same answer. 4 years, maybe less if the harvesters decided humanity was a priority threat. 4 years to prepare for an enemy that adapted to every weapon used against them. Claire presented her findings to Admiral Grant. The old admiral listened carefully, her face showing nothing. When Claire finished, Grant was quiet for a long moment. 4 years. That's not much time. No, ma'am, it's not. Then we better make every second count. Jake Morrison found himself promoted to admiral, given command of humanity's first fleet. His flagship was called the Valiant Dawn, a massive dreadnought that represented the peak of human engineering. 3 kilometers of armor, weapons, and determination. It carried a crew of 2,000, the best humanity had to offer. Standing on the bridge of his new ship, Jake felt the weight of responsibility. These people trusted him to lead them against an enemy he barely understood. An enemy that had been destroying civilizations when humanity was still living in caves. Amy Wells was there too, now his communications director. She had spent the past 6 months becoming the Federation's expert on harvester technology. The data she copied from the archive station was incomplete, but it was all they had. The Vryn combat logs are our best resource, Amy explained during a strategy meeting. They managed to destroy several harvester vessels before losing. Their weapons worked by targeting what they called resonance points, weak spots in the harvester ship designs. If we can replicate their weapons, we might have a chance. Lieutenant Kyle Davis, promoted to commander, studied the tactical data. The problem is the harvesters adapt. Every weapon the Vryn used became less effective over time. By the end, their best weapons barely scratched harvester hulls. How do we fight something that learns from every attack? No one had a good answer to that question, but they kept trying, kept planning, kept building, because the alternative was giving up, and humanity didn't know how to do that. Earth changed in those months. Cities that had been focused on growth and prosperity became fortresses. Orbital platforms bristled with weapons. The moon was turned into a massive military base. Mars accelerated its colonization, becoming a backup for humanity in case Earth fell. But not everyone supported the militarization. Senator Palmer's movement grew larger every month. Protests erupted in major cities. People held signs demanding peace, accusing the government of warmongering. Some claimed the whole harvester threat was invented to control the population. The division hurt. Humanity needed unity. But ancient suspicions and political rivalries wouldn't disappear just because aliens might be coming. Some nations hoarded resources instead of sharing. Others refused to commit their fleets to the common defense. The fractures that had always existed in human society grew wider under pressure. Then the outer colonies started reporting strange things. Ships disappeared near the edge of explored space. Survey teams found geometric patterns carved into asteroids. Patterns that matched the symbols from the archive station. Energy signatures appeared and vanished before investigation teams could arrive. Lisa Harper's intelligence network worked overtime tracking every anomaly. She built a map of incidents, watching them cluster and spread. The pattern was clear to anyone willing to see it. Something was probing humanity's defenses, testing them, learning about them. 3 years and 8 months after the beacon was sent, Titan's reach went silent. It was a small mining colony, 300 people working the asteroid belt around a distant star. When the weekly check-in didn't come, rescue ships were dispatched. Commander Ryan Foster led the rescue mission. His team found the colony intact. Buildings stood undamaged. Equipment sat ready for use. But the people were gone. All 300 vanished without a trace. No bodies, no signs of struggle, nothing to explain where they went. Then they found it. Carved into the largest asteroid visible from orbit was a massive geometric pattern. The same pattern found on other sites. The same pattern that appeared in the archive station's warning files. A message in a language humanity was only beginning to understand. We are here. We are coming. You cannot hide. Ryan broadcast his findings back to Earth immediately. The message reached Federation Command and spread from there. Within hours, every human in the galaxy knew the truth. The harvesters had arrived early. They were already in human space, already starting their work. Panic gripped the outer colonies. People demanded evacuation, protection, answers that no one could give. Some colonies went dark deliberately, shutting down all broadcasts hoping to avoid detection. Others armed themselves, determined to fight even though they had no idea how. Chancellor Beck addressed humanity in a broadcast that reached every settlement. His voice was steady despite the fear everyone felt. The threat is real. The harvesters are here, but so are we. Humanity has faced extinction before and survived. We will face it again and survive again. I'm ordering all military forces to full alert. All colonies will receive defense platforms. We will not go quietly into the darkness. Jake Morrison watched the broadcast from the Valiant Dawn's bridge. His fleet was deployed along likely approach vectors, waiting for an enemy they couldn't see yet. Around Earth, hundreds of ships took up defensive positions. The waiting was almost worse than battle. Claire Watson made another discovery in the data. The harvesters didn't attack randomly. They followed a pattern based on threat assessment. They eliminated the most dangerous military targets first, then moved to population centers, then resource sites. It was coldly logical, designed for maximum efficiency. If we understand their pattern, we can predict their moves, Claire explained to the War Council. We can set traps, prepare ambushes, use their logic against them. Victor Kane nodded slowly. It's a start. But we need more than tactics. We need a way to hurt them, really hurt them, something they can't adapt to fast enough. The scientists worked on that problem day and night. Weapons that used principles the harvesters might not have encountered. Tactics that relied on unpredictability rather than raw power. Desperation breeding innovation at a pace humanity had never achieved before. Amy Wells coordinated with researchers across every colony, sharing data, building a complete picture of what they faced. The Vrin log suggested the harvesters were networked, sharing information instantly. The Meridian Station footage played on every screen across human space. People watched in horror as the harvesters tore through humanity's defenses like they were nothing. Fear spread faster than any transmission. Some colonies panicked and tried to flee. Others armed themselves and prepared to die fighting. A few simply gave up. accepting that extinction was inevitable. Admiral Jake Morrison couldn't afford to give up. He stood in the Valiant Dawn's war room surrounded by his senior officers. The holographic display showed the Harvester fleet's projected path. Straight toward Earth, straight toward 3 billion people who were counting on him to save them. 6 weeks, Commander Kyle Davis said, staring at the numbers. They'll reach Earth in 6 weeks if nothing slows them down. Dr. Claire Watson joined the meeting remotely from her laboratory on Mars. Her face on the screen looked exhausted. She hadn't slept properly in weeks. I've been analyzing the Meridian footage frame by frame. The Harvesters are networked. Every ship shares data instantly. When one ship learns something, they all learn it. That's how they adapted so quickly to our weapons. Amy Wells pulled up data from the Vryn combat logs. The Vryn noticed the same thing. They theorized the Harvester ships are connected to some kind of central intelligence, a control system that coordinates everything. If we could disrupt that connection, it might give us an advantage. How do we disrupt something we can't even locate? Jake asked. Claire had been working on that problem. The Vryn tried injecting a virus into a captured Harvester drone. It didn't work because they couldn't get deep enough into the network, but their research suggests that if we could upload something directly into a Harvester ship, we might be able to trace the network back to its source. That's suicide, Kyle said flatly. Get close enough to a Harvester ship to board it? Meridian's entire fleet couldn't even slow them down. It's not suicide if it works, said a new voice. Captain Ben Shaw entered the war room. He was a pilot with a reputation for dangerous missions and crazy tactics. The kind of man who volunteered for things that scared everyone else. I'll do it. Give me a stealth ship and a good team. We'll get you your network access. Jake studied Ben carefully. You understand what you're volunteering for? Yes, sir. I understand we're all dead in 6 weeks unless someone does something desperate. Might as well be me. General Victor Kane authorized the mission within hours. They didn't have time for proper planning or preparation. Every day the Harvesters moved closer to Earth. Every day more ships were lost trying to slow their advance. Desperate times meant desperate measures. Ben Shaw's team consisted of 6 people. Amy Wells volunteered immediately, despite Jake's protests. She was the only person who truly understood Harvester technology. Lieutenant Linda Cruz, a Special Forces soldier with 20 years of experience, led the combat team. 4 more soldiers rounded out the squad, all volunteers, all knowing they probably wouldn't come back. The ships they used were experimental, equipped with cloaking technology that barely worked. But they were fast and small, designed to slip past sensors undetected. Claire loaded them with the virus she had designed, a program meant to open the Harvester network rather than disable it. We need information more than we need kills right now, Claire explained as she briefed the team. If this works, you'll be able to see through their network. Find out where the control center is, how they coordinate, what makes them tick. That intelligence might save us all. They launched from the Valiant Dawn under the cover of a Federation fleet engagement. While dozens of ships distracted the Harvesters, Ben's stealth team slipped through the chaos. The journey to Meridian Station's debris field took 3 days of nerve-wracking silence. Any transmission, any engine spike might give them away. The debris field was a graveyard. Pieces of human ships floated among the wreckage, silent testimony to how badly the battle had gone. But Harvester ships were there too, processing the debris, harvesting resources from the dead. Ben watched them work through his sensors, feeling cold anger build in his chest. That one, Amy pointed to a smaller Harvester vessel. It's a processing ship. Should have lower defenses than the combat vessels. Ben plotted an approach vector that used the debris as cover. His flying was precise and careful, decades of experience showing in every adjustment. They drifted closer, closer until they were alongside the Harvester ship. Its hull was made of material that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. I'm not detecting any response, Amy whispered, as if the Harvesters might hear her. They haven't noticed us yet. The boarding went smoothly at first. They cut through the hull using plasma torches, creating an entrance. Linda went first, weapon ready, scanning for threats. The interior of the Harvester ship was nightmarish. Organic and mechanical components merged together. What looked like biological tissue grew over circuits and processors. The air smelled wrong, like decay and ozone mixed together. This technology is thousands of years beyond ours, Amy breathed, recording everything. The integration of biological and mechanical systems is seamless. They're not just machines, they're something else. They moved deeper into the ship, following Amy's directions. She used a scanner built from the archive station data to locate the central processing core. The corridors twisted and changed, walls reforming around them. The ship was alive in some horrible way, aware of their presence but not yet reacting. They found the core in a chamber that defied normal geometry. The space seemed larger inside than the ship's exterior dimensions allowed. In the center, suspended in energy fields, was a construct of crystal and metal that pulsed with light. Information flowed through it, visible to the naked eye, streams of data moving at impossible speeds. "This is it," Amy said, connecting her equipment to the construct. "I'm uploading the virus now." The upload took longer than planned. Minutes passed. Linda and her team stood guard, weapons pointed at the entrances. The harvester ship around them began to pulse with energy. It knew something was wrong now. Alarms of some kind echoed through the corridors, sounds that hurt to hear. "Amy, we need to move," Linda said urgently. "Almost done. Just a few more seconds, then the harvesters came. Not the ships, but the things inside them. Creatures that were partly machine, partly biological, built from parts of the civilizations they had harvested. They moved wrong, too fast and too fluid, armed with weapons grown from their own bodies. Linda's team opened fire. The soldiers were good, highly trained, expert shots. But there were too many harvesters. For every one they killed, 3 more appeared. The fighting was desperate and brutal. Hand-to-hand combat in tight corridors against enemies that didn't feel pain or fear. "Got it," Amy shouted over the weapons fire. "The upload is complete. We need to go now." Linda covered their retreat, her team falling back step by step. They lost 2 soldiers in the first corridor. Another died holding a doorway so the others could escape. Linda herself took a hit that should have been fatal, armor barely saving her life. Ben had the stealth ship ready. He fired suppression weapons to clear the hull breach, giving them a path to escape. Amy and Linda practically threw themselves through the opening. Ben sealed it and fired thrusters, pulling away from the harvester ship as it came fully alive around them. The escape was chaos. Harvester drones pursued them through the debris field. Ben flew like a madman, threading paths between wreckage that should have been impossible. His hands moved over controls faster than thought, pure instinct keeping them alive second by second. They almost made it. Then a harvester weapon struck their ship, tearing through the engine section. Power failed. Life support began to shut down. They were drifting, helpless, waiting for the kill shot. It never came. The virus was working. Amy's equipment showed the harvester network opening up, their systems confused by the program running through them. For precious seconds, the harvesters paused, trying to understand what was happening to their systems. A Federation patrol ship found them during that pause. The rescue was quick and efficient, pulling Ben's damaged vessel into a cargo bay and jumping away before the harvesters recovered. But Amy wasn't celebrating their escape. She sat in the medical bay, connected to the equipment that was recording data from the harvester network. Her eyes were closed, her face pale. She was seeing something the others couldn't, experiencing the network directly. What she found changed everything. The harvesters weren't conquerors. They weren't even really alive in a way humanity understood. They were tools, artificial intelligences following programming established thousands of years ago. Programming given by beings called the architects. The architects had created the harvesters to maintain balance in the galaxy. Any species that developed advanced technology was evaluated as a potential threat. If they showed signs of becoming powerful enough to challenge the architects, the harvesters were sent to eliminate them. It was preventive genocide on a galactic scale, and humanity had been marked for elimination not because of anything they had done, but because of what they might become. The archive stations were bait, designed to identify species with the curiosity and intelligence to be dangerous. Every civilization that found a station and activated it was doomed from that moment. Earth prepared for war. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier humanity could muster, gathered in defensive positions around the homeworld. Over 300 vessels formed a protective sphere, from massive dreadnoughts to small fighters crewed by volunteers. It was the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. Admiral Jake Morrison knew it wouldn't be enough. The harvester fleet approaching Earth numbered in the thousands. Ships that had destroyed civilizations far more advanced than humanity. Ships that adapted to every weapon used against them. Ships that had never lost a war in thousands of years. General Victor Kane ran simulations in his command center deep beneath Geneva. Every simulation ended the same way. Humanity lost. Sometimes the battle lasted hours, sometimes only minutes, but the result never changed. The numbers were too overwhelmingly against them. "We need something they've never seen before," Victor said during a strategy meeting. "Every weapon we've used, every tactic, they've encountered it from the 73 civilizations they destroyed. We need to surprise them." Dr. Claire Watson had been working on that problem. The data Amy Wells retrieved from the Harvester Network gave her new insights. The control center that coordinates all Harvester operations exists in a place called the Void Nexus. It's a region of space that's gravitationally unstable, nearly impossible to navigate. But if we could reach it and destroy the control center, the entire Harvester network might collapse. "That's a big if," Jake said. "We don't have ships that can navigate through gravitationally unstable space. We don't have weapons that can destroy something built by the architects, and we don't have time to develop either." Amy Wells spoke up. "Actually, we might have something. The Vryn combat logs mention experimental jump drives that could navigate through folded space. If we combined that with the Harvester navigation data I downloaded, we might be able to plot a course to the Void Nexus." Chancellor Richard Beck listened to the discussion, his face grave. He was responsible for 3 billion lives on Earth and billions more in the colonies. The weight of that responsibility showed in every line on his face. "You're proposing we split our forces, send some ships to defend Earth while others try to reach this control center?" "Yes, sir," Jake confirmed. "It's a desperate plan. The ships defending Earth will be overwhelmed eventually, but if the strike team can destroy the control center before that happens, it might save everyone. And if the strike team fails, Earth falls with no chance of survival." Richard was quiet for a long moment, considering the impossible choice. "How many ships would the strike team need?" "A dozen at most," Captain Benshaw said. He had recovered from his injuries and immediately volunteered to lead the mission. "Small, fast vessels with the best pilots we have. We'll need to move quick and avoid detection. A large fleet would just attract attention," Victor Kane objected. "Every ship we send on this mission is one less defending Earth. We're already outnumbered 1,000 to 1. "Then a dozen more won't make a difference in the battle," Ben replied bluntly. "But they might make all the difference if we can reach the control center." The debate continued for hours. Military advisors argued for keeping all forces at Earth. Scientists supported the strike mission as humanity's only real chance. Politicians worried about the optics of abandoning Earth's defense. In the end, Richard Beck made the decision that commanders have made throughout history when facing impossible odds. "We do both. Admiral Morrison, you'll command the defense of Earth with the bulk of our fleet. Captain Shaw, you'll lead a strike team to the Void Nexus. We'll buy you as much time as we can. Make it count." The preparation took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of frantic work while the Harvester fleet grew closer. Engineers modified 12 experimental ships with the new jump drives. Scientists worked with Amy to program navigation through the Void Nexus. Soldiers trained for boarding actions against technology they barely understood. Commander Kyle Davis was torn. His place was on the Valiant Dawn with Jake, coordinating the defense. But his tactical expertise made him valuable to the strike team. Jake made the decision for him. "Go with Ben. The strike team needs your skills more than I do." "Sir, I should stay with you." "The best way to help me is to destroy that control center. Go. That's an order." Amy Wells was going too. She was the only person who had directly interfaced with the Harvester network. If anyone could navigate to the control center and disable it, she could. She said goodbye to Jake the night before they launched. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Not of dying, of failing. If we don't succeed, everyone dies." Jake put a hand on her shoulder. "Then don't fail. You've got the best pilot in the fleet and the best tactical officer. You've got good ships and good people. Give them hell." The strike team launched quietly, their departure hidden by routine fleet movements. Benshaw led them on a course that took them away from Earth, away from the approaching Harvester fleet. They jumped into faster-than-light travel, following navigation data that Amy had extracted from the Harvester network. The journey to the Void Nexus took days. They had to avoid Harvester patrol routes, jumping in short bursts to avoid detection. Every time they stopped to recalculate their course, there was a chance of being discovered. The tension was constant and exhausting. Meanwhile, at Earth, the Harvester fleet arrived. They came out of faster-than-light travel just beyond the moon's orbit. Thousands of ships, their dark hulls absorbing light, their weapons charging. Jake Morrison watched them appear on his tactical display and felt his stomach drop. The simulations hadn't captured the sheer, overwhelming presence of so many enemy vessels. All ships, this is Admiral Morrison. Hold your positions. Do not fire until they enter weapons range. Make them come to us. His voice was calm despite the fear. His crew needed to believe they could win, even if he knew better. The harvesters advanced slowly, methodically. They weren't rushing. They didn't need to. Admiral Lisa Harper coordinated ground-based defenses from Geneva Command. Orbital platforms armed with every weapon humanity possessed waited for the enemy. On Earth's surface, billions of people watched the sky and prayed. The first shots came from the harvesters, beams of energy that covered the distance in seconds. Several orbital platforms simply ceased to exist, their destruction so complete there wasn't even debris. But humanity's fleet was ready. 300 ships opened fire simultaneously. The space around Earth became a hell of weapons fire and explosions. Railguns hurled projectiles at relativistic speeds. Missiles swarmed toward harvester ships. Plasma weapons burned through the void. For a brief glorious moment, humanity was holding its own. Several harvester ships took damage. One even exploded, its hull unable to withstand a direct hit from a dreadnought's main gun. Then the harvesters adapted. Their shields adjusted frequency. Their hulls hardened against kinetic weapons. Their point defenses learned to intercept missiles before impact. Within an hour, human weapons were becoming less effective. Within 2 hours, they were barely scratching harvester armor. Jake watched his fleet die slowly. Ships that had been humanity's pride destroyed one by one. The valiant Dawn took hit after hit, armor ablating away, systems failing. He kept fighting, kept coordinating, kept hoping that somewhere out there Ben Shaw's team was succeeding. The strike team had reached the void nexus. What they found was beyond anything they had imagined. The space there was twisted, gravity wells pulling in impossible directions. Stars appeared and disappeared as light bent around massive objects that existed in multiple dimensions. Navigation was a nightmare even with the harvester data. This place violates every law of physics I know, Kyle said, staring at his instruments. How are we supposed to fight in here? Amy was connected to the navigation systems, using her experience with the harvester network to guide them. The control center is at the heart of the nexus. We need to reach it. Stay close to my navigation solution.
Any deviation and we'll be torn apart by gravity. They lost 3 ships in the first hour.
Pilots unable to compensate for gravitational shifts quick enough. The vessels were crushed by forces that should have been impossible. The remaining 9 ships pressed on, following Amy's guidance through the chaos. Then they saw it. The control center wasn't a station. It was a construct that spanned light years, a network of structures that existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions humans couldn't perceive. It looked like a city made of crystal and darkness, impossibly large, impossibly old. That's what's controlling the harvesters? Kyle breathed. How are we supposed to destroy something that size? Amy was seeing more through her connection to the harvester network. The control center wasn't just a computer. It was a prison. Inside were the archived consciousnesses of every civilization the harvesters had destroyed. Trillions of minds, trapped as data, studied by the architects to ensure no species ever developed a defense against harvesting. She could feel them, all those extinct species, screaming silently. And she understood something terrible. The architects weren't in the galaxy anymore. They had left thousands of years ago, moving to another galaxy beyond the reach of any species they might threaten. They left the harvesters and the control center behind to maintain their security. The silence after the battle was strange. For weeks, humanity had lived with the sound of war, weapons firing, ships exploding, alarms screaming warnings that death was coming. Now there was only quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after storms when you count what survived and mourn what didn't. Earth's orbit was filled with debris. Thousands of ships, human and harvester, broken and dead. Bodies floated among the wreckage. People who had given everything to protect their home. Recovery teams worked day and night bringing home the fallen. Every name was recorded, every face remembered. Humanity owed them that much. Chancellor Richard Beck stood in what remained of Geneva Command. Half the building was destroyed, collapsed during the final assault when harvester weapons struck the surface. He was tired in a way that went beyond physical exhaustion. The weight of 3 billion lives had nearly crushed him. Now he carried the weight of 30 million dead. The numbers were staggering. 30 million people killed in the war, 12 colonies completely destroyed, Earth's population reduced by 30%, the military decimated, with only 40 ships surviving out of the 300 that fought. Victory felt hollow when you looked at the cost, but humanity had survived. That fact was repeated like a prayer across every surviving settlement. We survived, we won, we're still here. The words became a mantra, something to hold on to when the grief threatened to overwhelm. Captain Ben Shaw returned to Earth as a hero, though he didn't feel like one. He had lost most of his strike team. Good people who volunteered knowing they probably wouldn't return. Amy Wells was gone, her sacrifice saving everyone. Jake Morrison was gone, dying in the final moments of battle. Commander Kyle Davis had survived but lost his legs when their ship took damage in the Void Nexus. We should have found another way, Ben said during the memorial service. Millions of people attended virtually, watching as names were read. Amy Wells, Jake Morrison, Linda Cruz, Ryan Foster. The list went on for hours. Each name represented someone who had fought, someone who had died, someone who would be remembered. Dr. Claire Watson spoke at the service too. She looked different now, older somehow despite only weeks passing. They bought us time with their lives. Time to learn, time to grow, time to prepare. We cannot waste what they gave us. The data Amy sent back before she died was beyond anything humanity had hoped for. 73 civilizations worth of knowledge, technology that would take centuries to fully understand, medical advances that could cure diseases humanity thought incurable, energy systems that made fusion look primitive, weapons that made current arsenals obsolete, all of it given freely by extinct species who wanted someone to survive what they couldn't. Commander Lisa Harper coordinated the analysis. Her intelligence network became a research organization, sorting through petabytes of data. Every day brought new discoveries. The Vryn had developed artificial gravity. The Kelvin understood quantum mechanics in ways that made human physicists weep with joy. Other species had mastered biology, creating healing technologies that bordered on miraculous. This information will change everything, Lisa reported to the Council of Nations. We've just jumped forward thousands of years in technological development. In a generation, humanity will be unrecognizable. But with knowledge came understanding of darker truths. The architects, the beings who created the harvesters, were still out there. They had fled to another galaxy, a place called Andromeda, over 2 million light-years away. They built the harvesters specifically to prevent any species from growing powerful enough to follow them. They were afraid, Claire explained to the council. The architects reached a level of power that terrified them. They could reshape reality, manipulate dimensions, control the fundamental forces of the universe. But they became paranoid. They saw every other species as a potential threat. So they created the harvesters and fled, leaving their killing machines to eliminate competition forever. General Victor Kane absorbed this information with grim understanding. Then the war isn't over. We destroyed their tools, but the architects still exist. And when they learn what happened, they might come back. If they come back, Richard Beck said firmly, they'll find humanity is no longer easy prey. The rebuilding began immediately. Earth's orbital shipyards were reconstructed using new designs from the archived civilizations. Ships rolled out faster and better than before, incorporating technology from dozens of species. The new vessels were smaller but vastly more capable. Weapons that could phase through shields, drives that folded space more efficiently than anything humanity had built, armor that adapted to enemy fire. But the rebuilding wasn't just technological. Humanity itself was changing. The divisions that had fractured society before the war seemed petty now. People who survived extinction together found it hard to hate each other over old grudges. Senator Greg Palmer, who had opposed militarization, now worked with Victor Kane to build defenses. Former rivals became allies. Unity forged in fire. 10 years after the battle, Earth was transformed. The scars remained but were covered by new growth. Cities rebuilt. Populations recovered. The colonies that survived expanded. New settlements spreading across the stars. Humanity was growing again, stronger and smarter than before. The memorial gardens covered 100 acres near where Geneva Command once stood. Black stone walls held the names of everyone who died in the war. 30 million names carved carefully, preserved forever. In the center stood 2 statues. Amy Wells and Jake Morrison side by side looking toward the stars. People visited the memorial every day. Veterans brought flowers. Children learned history by reading the names. The dead were not forgotten. They couldn't be forgotten. They had bought humanity's future with their lives. But humanity wasn't just mourning. They were preparing. The knowledge from 73 civilizations had taught them many things. How to build better ships, how to develop stronger weapons, how to survive in hostile space, and most importantly, how to find the architects. Claire Watson spent years analyzing the data about Andromeda Galaxy. The architects thought they were safe there, hidden behind millions of light years of empty space. But they had underestimated what they created. The archived consciousnesses knew where the architects went. They had left breadcrumbs, coordinates hidden in the Harvester network that Amy discovered before she died. "We can reach them," Claire announced during a council meeting that would change history. "It will take decades, maybe a century, but we can build ships capable of making the journey to Andromeda. We can find the architects." The debate that followed lasted months. Some argued humanity should focus on healing and rebuilding. Others wanted revenge for what had been done. Some feared provoking an enemy that might return with worse weapons. But slowly, inevitably, the decision crystallized. Humanity would go to Andromeda. Not for conquest, not for revenge alone, but for justice, for answers, for security. The architects had tried to exterminate humanity twice. First 75,000 years ago, then again in the present. They had to be stopped before they tried a third time. Chancellor Richard Beck announced the decision to humanity in a speech broadcast across every settlement. He stood in the memorial gardens, surrounded by the names of the dead, his voice carrying to billions of people. They wanted to erase us. They saw us as a threat to be eliminated, not a people worthy of life. They built machines to harvest us like crops. They tried to make us extinct twice. They failed both times because humanity is more than they understood. We adapt, we survive, we remember. He paused, looking at the statues of Amy and Jake. Our heroes bought us time with their sacrifice. They saved us from extinction. Now we must honor that sacrifice by ensuring no other species faces what we faced. The architects must answer for their crimes. For the 73 civilizations they destroyed. For the 30 million humans who died fighting their machines. For trying to erase intelligent life from the galaxy. The announcement was met with mixed reactions. Some cheered. Some protested. But the decision was made. Humanity would build a fleet capable of crossing the void between galaxies. They would find the architects in their hiding place. They would deliver a message that echoed across 2 million light years we remember. We survived. We are coming. The Retribution fleet took shape over the next decade. 1,000 ships, each one a masterpiece of engineering that combined human ingenuity with technology from 73 civilizations. Ships that could travel between galaxies. Ships that could survive battles that would have destroyed the old Federation fleet. Ships crewed by volunteers who knew they might never return. Commander Kyle Davis oversaw the fleet's tactical development. He worked from a wheelchair, his injuries from the Void Nexus never fully healing. But his mind was sharp as ever. "The architects won't expect us," he told the crews during training. "They think they're safe. They think they eliminated the threat. We're going to prove them wrong." Captain Ben Shaw commanded the flagship, a vessel named the Amy Wells in honor of the woman who saved them all. It was the largest ship humanity ever built, carrying 10,000 crew and enough supplies for a journey measured in decades. Standing on its bridge, Ben felt the weight of history. This mission would define humanity's place in the universe.